We're on Brunswick Street up in Kindness House. And we've been around for about 6 years now, and our mission is to highlight how Australia can move to zero emissions in a very tight time frame, about 10 years. We believe technical solutions are available and that it's just a matter of political will and social will. Our objective is to look at a range of sectors in the Australian economy. The energy sector, which contributes about 50% of Australia's emissions. That was the subject of our first Zero Carbon Australia report, which we're giving away for free. I've got 5 copies up the front. And we also have a stall up the alley there that we're also giving away the stationary energy plans. And the second report that we did was released last year, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today, the Buildings Plan. This shows how Australia's homes and buildings can move to zero emissions, again in a very tight time frame. Our objective is, instead of taking an incremental approach where we're saying, oh, we could do this next year, we could do this the year after, we're saying to avoid catastrophic climate change, we need to be in this position in 10 years' time, and then working back from there in a futures scenario kind of perspective rather than an incremental perspective, which we believe if we take an incremental approach, we'll just watch that frog boiling in the beaker. We need to stop the frog boiling in the beaker, set that position, and then work back from there so we avoid catastrophic climate change. I'm just going to play with this mic a bit because it's stuck underneath another cord. So I'm going to reach for the mouse, and so I'm going to be doing this. Maybe I'll use this mic. Hang on.
Check 1, 2.
Check 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. So I'll be talking about the zero emissions home, how all houses in Australia can move to zero emissions and beyond through a range of energy efficiency measures, but also putting solar PV systems on the roof, which means that each house can essentially become a net energy producer, not a net energy consumer. So as I mentioned earlier, we've released 2 reports already. We're just about to release a report on high-speed rail, showing how we can build a high-speed rail system between Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane for about $30 billion less than the previous government's reports have shown. And obviously if we move to high-speed rail, that substantially reduces our aviation emissions and our road transport emissions. But our other 2 reports, as I mentioned, stationary energy and buildings. So the Zero Carbon Australia Buildings Plan, it was produced on a shoestring budget. We receive most of our money from philanthropic organisations, family trusts, etc. And we have hundreds of volunteers around Australia who contribute to our research. Those volunteers are often, they finished a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Engineering, they're between jobs, they're working out what they want to do in the real world. They may be in between jobs, but they're highly qualified, experienced volunteers, and they ensure that our reports are highly credible, robust, and scientifically, when we put them in front of government, the government really stands up and listens. So we had over 100 volunteers, and we've shown how we can re-engineer Australia's building sector in a 10-year period. And we also had in-kind contributions from over 30 companies. So when I present this plan, I had a meeting with the Insulation Council of Australia and New Zealand, and they said, why should we listen to you? And I said, look at page 5 of this report, and it's got all of the people who contribute to this report, and they're highly regarded, well-known people, and they go, okay, let's start talking. So a very powerful model for us. So what did we find out? We found out that there would be a 53% reduction in residential energy use, a 44% reduction in non-residential energy use. There was potential for 33,000 megawatts of rooftop solar in Australia's homes, and that the initial investment by putting in place a range of energy efficiency initiatives and then putting solar PV on the roofs would be offset by savings on energy bills. So when people think about a zero carbon home, often a range of images come into one's mind, and various funky buildings in the landscape. I actually have one of these funky buildings that I built myself on a property, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about your standard 3-bedroom brick veneer in the suburbs throughout Australia and converting these homes to zero emissions. So why should we fix Australia's existing buildings? And remember, this is about retrofitting the existing building stock. This isn't about building new homes. This is about retrofitting the homes that we all live in today. So why should we do this? Because our homes, as we all know, are uninsulated, they're leaky, they're cold in winter, they're hot in summer, and they're uncomfortable. For those of you who have lived in Europe or in North America, you go over there and you live in a building and you come back here and you're reminded of just how uncomfortable our buildings and how often poorly built and poorly insulated they are. We use gas guzzling appliances for heating and cooking, and we all know that the gas price is going up, and gas prices are predicted to go up fourfold in the next 3 years. So you can just imagine why would we go with gas when we have a range of electrical products, electrical appliances that are much more efficient, and we can remove all the environmental and other problems that come with using gas. We have often in our houses inefficient and outdated halogen lights. We're currently experiencing an LED revolution. So IKEA, for example, has said that they are not going to sell anything but LEDs from 2015 onwards. We have a range of companies in Australia and worldwide who are making this LED revolution a reality, and as we all know, LED lighting has major benefits in terms of costs and in terms of efficiency and therefore greenhouse gas emission reductions. We're often using substandard electrical appliances, and there are a range of new, much more efficient appliances coming on the market and also readily available now. The other thing with our energy consumption in our homes is we are driving blind on our energy consumption. We get a bill at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter and we go, wow, I didn't know I was using that much energy. So there's a lack of a feedback mechanism which is instantaneous, where we're consuming energy and we see that energy being consumed in the home. So we're obviously promoting very strongly energy management systems, smart meters, etc. in the homes, where you get instantaneous feedback on the energy consumption in your home, which will avoid us, as I mentioned, it will avoid us driving blind on our energy use. The other thing is we're at the behest of the big energy companies, and for those of you who have been reading the media recently, those big energy companies are worried. They are worried about the impact of renewable energy on their profits, and by houses moving towards renewable energy and solar rooftop PV, it's actually reducing the wholesale price of electricity. And that, in my view, that's a good thing. It means it puts the power back in the hand of households. It means that electricity is cheaper. For those of you who don't know, in the last heat wave in January that hit Melbourne, solar PV reduced wholesale peak demand by 4.6% during that heat wave. Now, 4.6% doesn't sound like a lot, but what that meant is that the high-cost generators such as gas and diesel didn't have to come online, which meant that the price, wholesale electricity price, peaked at around $500 a megawatt hour instead of the $44,600 a megawatt hour, which had peaked in January 2009, which was the last major heat wave in Melbourne. So you can see that the introduction of solar rooftop in Australia is having dramatic impact on keeping wholesale electricity prices down and also ensuring that we're coping better in heat waves. For those of you who don't know, there's about 1.4 million houses now with rooftop PV and projections of another 3.5 million rooftops over the next 5 years to put solar PV. So it's an incredible revolution that's occurring. And that means that we can take charge of our own energy consumption, our own energy use, and not be at the behest of the big energy companies. So why is energy freedom the goal? So energy freedom essentially is the concept where by putting in place energy efficiency measures and then putting rooftop solar, we can become free of the energy companies and essentially in control of our own energy. As I mentioned, electricity prices going up. They've gone up 70% since 2007, and gas prices are forecast to jump dramatically. And I mentioned the big energy companies. The top 3 retailers own 76% of the market share. So in our report, the Zero Carbon Australia Buildings Plan, I've got 5 copies up the front, which are selling for $30 each, but we've also got more for sale in our Beyond Zero Emissions stall up the alley there. We had a range of recommendations across the whole building, and these recommendations covered lighting, fabric upgrades, so it's insulation and double glazing, space conditioning, hot water systems, cooking, energy monitoring, and appliances. And there's a range of recommendations in our report which can be easily implemented by all of us. I've actually implemented a lot of the initiatives myself a couple of times, and I have a range of colleagues who say, yeah, I could be doing this, I want to do it, and show me how. And the buildings plan is a way of highlighting to people how they can implement a lot of these solutions. So on lighting, replacing all linear fluoros and halogen downlights with LED alternatives. Insulating on our fabric upgrades, we've got insulating roofs at least to R6, insulating walls to 2.5, replacing windows with double glazing, inserting curtains and pelmets on windows, eliminating ventilated downlights, and putting weather sealing on our external windows and doors, putting external awnings on east and west windows. Space conditioning, an amazing way to both heat and cool the buildings, and these space conditioners are becoming more and more energy efficient. On hot water, we're recommending heat pumps. It doesn't mean solar water heaters are bad, it just means that we believe that heat pumps are much more efficient, and I'll go through that in a bit more detail. On cooking, we're recommending moving to induction cook stoves as quickly as possible. These induction cook stoves have much higher efficiencies than the standard cook stoves. And obviously we're recommending going away from gas because of all of the downsides I mentioned earlier in terms of costs going up, but also the environmental and other impacts that come with consuming gas. I mean, gas is just another fossil fuel essentially, and we believe we should be moving away from fossil fuels as quickly as possible, especially when we have the solutions available right now. On energy monitoring, we're recommending the installation of smart meters and energy management systems and in-home displays. So again, we get that instantaneous feedback on when we're using energy. We get that direct feedback of the different energy consumption in our homes. And And then on appliances, we're recommending obviously moving to energy efficient appliances as your appliances in your homes break down, that they should be replaced with as higher energy efficiency product as possible. We're not recommending changing all your appliances right now, so your refrigerator, your cook stove, etc. We're just recommending as they break down, when you buy a new one, go for the highest efficient product as possible. So, why would we go for halogens? Why would we go for LEDs and not halogens? Because we can get an 80% saving. These are cheaper, they have a longer lifetime. As I mentioned, there's an LED revolution occurring, and the prices are just going to come down further, and the efficiencies are just going to increase further. The LED is a 21st century technology, much better performance and a much longer lifetime. Bit of a spruik for Philips here. Philips are doing great work on their lighting stuff. Insulation just makes sense. It's cost effective. It has enormous benefits in terms of making houses cooler in summer and warmer in winter. The roofs, and it's a shame actually that the Rudd government's insulation program has been so heavily criticised by the Abbott government. It's actually the most cost-effective way of reducing emissions in Australia, and it's just been so unfortunate that it's got such bad press, and that the Abbott government's just been so negative about insulation. It's a crying shame, because insulation is just makes obvious sense in every country, whether it's a hot country or a cool country. Now, insulating roofs obviously is a bit easier than insulating walls and floors, but whenever you get the opportunity, if you're renovating, pulling out your plasterboard, you should be putting insulation when you're putting the plasterboard back in. Even on internal walls, because insulation in the internal walls can have huge improvements in thermal efficiency, but also in reducing things like noise within the home. I've just done a renovation in a house, and I also made sure I insulated the floors as I was doing the floors, because there's not a lot of energy loss through the floors, but it's 7 to 15% depending on the floor you're using, and it does make sense and does reduce your energy bills. There's a whole bunch of new products also coming online, so you don't have to pull out your plasterboard and put in a bat. There's this a range of new products, which is this kind of bubble polystyrene that you can essentially pump into your walls. There's a range of companies that also, they can make a small cavity in the wall and pump in insulation. So it doesn't mean you have to pull out your whole wall to insulate your home. Double glazing. Double glazing again is a no-brainer, and a lot of people think that to put double glazing in, you have to pull your whole window out, the whole window unit. In fact, you don't. I've done this in my own house, where if you've got a wooden frame on your window, you can just remove the beading from around the single pane, measure that to the millimetre, take the measurement to O'Brien's or to another glass glazing manufacturer, and they will build a double glazing unit for you, and you can basically put that into your window frame yourself. Now, when it comes to, I'll take questions at the end if you don't mind. When it comes to steel frame or aluminium frame windows, that's a much more tricky equation. A lot of our homes, they're 40, 50, 60 years old, and a lot of them are built with wooden frames, and it's actually fairly straightforward to just retrofit rather than replace the whole window unit. So we believe double glazing and optimizing glazing makes absolute sense, and again, relatively cost effective. You know, standard window, $100 or $200 to change that from single glazing to double glazing. Air filtration. As I mentioned at the start, our homes are leaky. They essentially, if we're heating them, the hot air is going out, and when it's hot outside, all the hot air is coming in. And so putting in place measures such as strips along doors, along windows, we've just recently, as I mentioned, renovated a house. We made sure the front entrance had kind of a vestibule area, so that was the winterizing or summer zone where you weren't letting hot air in during summer and cold air in during winter. And again, if you've lived in North America or in Europe, a lot of houses are designed with that front entrance so that when you're coming into the house, you're keeping the rest of the house cool in summer and warm in winter. But again, these measures are extremely cost effective and have enormous benefits in terms of energy bills and greenhouse gas reductions. Now, on space conditioning, we believe that air conditioners, air conditions are consuming a lot of energy, but they are becoming extremely efficient. And we believe that they're much more efficient, obviously, than the gas for heating. And so we're suggesting replacing space conditioning in terms of reverse cycle air conditioners. Now the next slide demonstrates why. So a lot of houses, particularly 10, 15 years ago, we all put in ducted gas systems. Now, ducted gas systems, as I mentioned, the gas price is going up dramatically, but also ducted gas systems are incredibly inefficient. And this slide shows why. You've essentially got an overall efficiency from your gas system of 29%. That's because you get an incredible amount of losses. So of the useful delivered heat of 10 megajoules, you're actually losing 5 megajoules in delivered waste heat. You've got duct losses of 9 megajoules, and you've got flue losses of 10 megajoules. So you've got input of 33.41 megajoules, 10 megajoules coming out the end, but 24 megajoules of losses. Now, you can't tell me that's an efficient system. You compare that with your efficient space conditioner, and you've got an overall efficiency of 391% with only 1.5 megajoules of waste delivered heat and 0.58 megajoules of pipe losses to get the same useful delivered heat of 10 megajoules. So we're suggesting moving away from gas and moving to much more energy efficient electricity products for cooling and for heating. Hot water systems, we're recommending heat pumps. Doesn't mean that solar hot water systems are bad. It just means that we think that heat pumps are much more efficient. And heat pumps use about 80% less energy than traditional systems. On cooking, who of you have used these induction cook stoves? They're pretty incredible, aren't they? They're amazing, and they're available. They're an existing technology, and they're incredibly energy efficient, but they're also safe. We are recommending, cooking accounts for a small proportion of our overall energy needs, but putting in place energy efficient cook stoves makes absolute sense. Same performances for gas. A lot of people don't like gas because of the way you can regulate the temperature and everything else, but the induction cook stoves actually have the same kind of functionality, but half the energy consumption. As I mentioned earlier, we have a whole range of energy inefficient appliances in our homes. We're not suggesting that you go out away from this talk and you go home and you chuck all of them out and buy energy efficient products. I mean, if you have the money to go and do that, fine. But we're recommending, as an appliance breaks down, you then replace it. And this is modelled on the Japanese Top Runner program. And this slide here shows the incredible results from that program in Japan, where they essentially promoted not replacing all energy efficient products at once, but as they break down, you go for the most efficient product on the market. As I mentioned earlier, we are driving blind on our energy use, and installing energy management systems and smart meters in the home means that you can track instantaneously your energy consumption and get direct feedback as you're consuming energy. You can switch appliances off and you can watch the impact on that smart meter from switching appliance off, particularly all of the appliances on standby, like your plasma TVs and LED TVs and some of the products that just sit there waiting to be used, but they're actually using a lot of energy as they're on backup or standby. And you can literally, by having an energy management system and a smart meter system in your home, you can flip those power switches off at the wall and literally watch your energy consumption go down as you do it. So we believe that instantaneous feedback is far more effective than getting an energy bill at the end of the quarter or at the end of the month, where you go, oh, I didn't realise I was using that much energy. So there's a whole range of new products on the market, and we're recommending the wide rollout of these products in our homes. So, as I mentioned at the start, we've done some analysis. We've looked at the potential for rooftop solar on our houses around Australia, and we've modelled that there's at least 33,000 megawatts of potential from rooftop solar in Australia. That's an incredible figure. Rooftop solar's dropped in prices by about 29% since 2011. Although the subsidies and rebates are not as high as what they were 5 years ago, the prices off the shelf now makes absolute sense. A system that might have cost $20,000 or $25,000 5 years ago now costs about $6,000 or $7,000 to $10,000. So a very cost-effective way of going zero emissions in your homes, and essentially our homes can become renewable energy power stations, and what a way to do it. As I mentioned, 1.4 million homes in Australia already have rooftop solar, and projections of another 3.5 million homes in the next 5 years to be putting on rooftop solar. So be part of that revolution as well. So putting all of this together, this looks at your standard average 3-bedroom brick veneer home, which I showed that slide early in the presentation. The baseline energy consumption is just over 200 megajoules per day. Putting in LED lighting will reduce that a little bit. Lighting's not a huge energy consumer, but LED lighting is a very cost-effective way of reducing consumption and emissions, even just by that little bit. Putting in place your fabric upgrades, your insulation and double glazing, etc., dramatic reduction in energy consumption. More efficient space conditioning, again, a fairly good reduction. Heat pumps, and then induction cook stoves and more efficient appliances. Essentially bring your energy consumption down from 200 megajoules down to just over 50 megajoules. So a reduction of about 75% from all of these energy efficient measures. Now that's pretty exciting, but what's even more exciting is this. So you've reduced your energy consumption by 3/4. Then you whack a 4.5 kilowatt solar system on your roof, and instead of consuming energy, you then start producing energy. So the solar contribution is that, and means that the net consumption energy is negative. And that's where we get this concept of energy freedom and zero emissions homes. And this, as I said earlier, is not new buildings, this is retrofitting our existing homes. So retrofit plus no gas, getting rid of all of those gas bills and all of the environmental damage that gas causes out there in the environment. And then going solar means energy freedom. Pretty exciting. So this is the last slide, but I will say that since implementing and releasing our buildings plan, which, as I said, I've got 5 copies up the front here, we've had a number of householders and people come up to us saying, how can I do this? How can you help me put in place a zero emissions home? On the other hand, we've got companies, solar companies, double glazing companies, insulation companies, smart meter companies who now want to partner with us to essentially join up with households to put forward, and put in place this energy freedom opportunity. So we're building what we're calling an Energy Freedom Alliance. We're about to launch this initiative. We think it's very exciting. We have a number of companies on board and we'll be putting up a website very shortly. So look out for energyfreedom.org.au, which will be a website which will be launched in the next month or two. And that will provide further information for each of you on how to build a zero emissions home, how to retrofit your existing home, and also how you can become energy free. So we believe this is also a way of taking energy consumption into our own hands and reducing greenhouse gas emissions in our own hands rather than waiting for what I would call as recalcitrant government, which is currently in power, who doesn't believe that climate change is real and doesn't believe we should be doing anything to address greenhouse gas emissions. This is an opportunity for us to do something regardless of which government is in power. So I'll leave that with you, and Simon's outside. I don't know how much time I've got for questions, but I think I've got at least 10 minutes. And we do have a roving mic.
Hi, my name's Lisa. I looked at the possibility of retrofitting my home to have double glazing units put in the existing wooden frames, and I came up against a problem because mine are full length windows, and they told me that they couldn't put double glazing units in the bottom of the windows because they had to have a certain thickness of glass on the bottom, and they had to have 2 layers of that certain thickness of glass. And I said, well, couldn't we have normal safety glass and then film on top? No, the regulations say, so you can't have this. So then that's what you do for me.
Well, obviously I'm not a double glazing company, but I've done this myself, and I've done it a couple of times. It does depend on the size of the window, and if you're going to do it yourself, obviously if you've got a massive window it's much harder, but if you've got a standard size window, which might be say 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters high, then it's fairly easy to do yourself. The trick is to get the measurement exactly right, because you want to minimise obviously any air gap and you want to minimise any water coming in. But essentially, if you've measured it down to the millimetre, and there's the same old adage, measure twice, cut once. Because when I have gone to O'Brien's, because I've gone to O'Brien's a number of times where I've measured my single pane window, and I've gone with the exact measurement, and they've built the double glazing unit, but they have got a number of second-hand ones there saying, oh, the person who wanted to have it done didn't measure accurately. So it is really important to measure accurately, and then use the silastic beading around the outside, and then just put the wooden trim back around, and Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
The bottom part of the window, I'm not sure, maybe I can talk to you about that a bit more afterwards, but yeah. Yeah, okay. Any other questions?
I am actually renting, and I have done it myself with magnetic band and perspex.
Yeah.
So that works too, and that works over a greater area, and you can take it off if you need to. So that worked pretty good and reasonably cost effective.
Yeah, that's right. My parents have done that too, where you just keep the existing unit in and you can actually just put another unit next to it, whether it's perspex or thin film or a whole other window unit, which gives you that, so there's a bit more of a air gap, and you've kept your existing glass in there and you've essentially put another glass unit next to it at the front of the window or at the back of the window, depending on the window unit. Another question.
Yeah, my name is Theo Badashi, and I'm here with some filmmaker friends of mine. We're actually touring. Melbourne's our first stop in this tour.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the world premiere of our new documentary called The Future of Energy.
Great.
This Friday, and one of the things we feature is retrofitting in the film, and so we were really excited to be here to hear you talk about this, because it's definitely a major part of the energy revolution that's really sweeping across the whole planet, really.
The globe, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just an Australian thing.
No, it's really exciting and a lot of opportunity. When it comes to like insulation and that sort of thing, are there places in Melbourne or in this area that you recommend that have a really ecologically intelligent materials that they're using? Not just biodegradable, but it's really ecologically conscious type of products that are used for insulation in particular?
Yeah, I mean, Melbourne's a pretty funky town, as you might have realised already since being here, and there are a range of innovative, product manufacturers. I could go through a list with you afterwards, maybe, but I have to be careful not to promote any particular provider or company, because we're a not-for-profit organisation, and we don't endorse or accredit these type of companies.
But in general, you're finding there are companies that are using really conscious materials?
Yeah, that's right. And Melbourne tends to be at the front of the wave, it's interesting, of a lot of these developments, and certainly at the front of the wave in a whole range of environmental initiatives as well. What's interesting on your earlier comment, though, in terms of this being a global revolution, is that even the Tea Party in the US, we're talking about energy freedom. So if you Google energy freedom, so we've got all the domain names because we're about to launch this initiative, but when we were Googling energy freedom to see what was out there, the Tea Party had even been talking about energy freedom. The most conservative political party in the United States. But again, their agenda is actually to give householders more freedom from large companies and large corporates. So it's an agenda, I think, which appeals to a whole range of people, not just people who are interested in the environment.
They're actually calling them the Green Tea Party now.
Right. Yeah, they've lost their caffeine.
But we have a great segment about retrofitting, so if any of you guys want to come out to, it's this Friday at the Transitions Film Festival.
Good.
Cinema Nova, 8:30.
Excellent.
So yeah, you're welcome to come.
No worries. We had a question here, and then a question behind, and then questions up the front.
Hi, I'm not with him.
But you're from the States, or Canada?
Originally, no, US. What exactly is a heat pump? How does it work, and where do I get it?
Yeah, look, there are a range of heat pump companies in Melbourne, but also around Australia. I mean, essentially a heat pump it works pretty much like a refrigerator. It's an air transfer system, cooling, heating. It's different to a solar water system, obviously, which takes, the direct sunlight and heats, pipes and, uses essentially the direct radiation. It's more of a heat transfer system. A range of companies. There's, again, I want to be careful about, talking about individual companies, but we are about to partner with a company called Sidham Solar Stream. They actually developed the quantum heat pump a number of years ago, and they've got a range of interesting products on the market. I can talk to you about that afterwards. But again, much higher efficiency than solar water heaters. I do want to emphasize, if you have a solar hot water system on your roof, don't feel guilty. They are great. They are really, really good. And by no means am I saying solar water heaters are bad. I'm just saying that heat pumps have a much higher efficiency. And if you're just starting from scratch a heat pump, we'd recommend there's a way to go rather than a solar water heater. Had a question in the middle. Yeah. Just wait for the mic, sorry. Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Louise. I've got a similar question. We've got an Apricus solar hot water thing on our roof, but I was interested in you saying no gas. I'm keen to get rid of gas, but I gas boost my solar hot water, and that's okay. At the moment we have the gas turned off and we're just using the sun, but it's going to cool down. Can you electric boost your solar hot water?
You can. Yeah, you can. Depending on the system, obviously, but electric boosting, again, particularly if you've got solar panels on your roof, you can still be energy free and have an energy producer as be an energy producer as a household, not an energy consumer. The no gas agenda is very important for us. We're a not-for-profit that's promoting beyond zero emissions, and we believe we should be transitioning away from fossil fuels as quickly as possible, not just because of the damage they're causing to the planet in terms of climate change, but also with the coal seam methane industry in Australia, enormous local environmental impacts on the land. We've got Lock the Gate just over the path here, and they're promoting that no gas agenda and no coal seam gas agenda in a very high profile way, and they're building alliances with farmers to keep gas companies out of agricultural areas. But also, as you mentioned, gas prices are going up. We've got a number of gas producing sites about to go online in Queensland, and they are all catering for the export market. Now, the export price of gas is 4 times higher than the domestic price of gas. But a gas company who's producing this gas is going to go, okay, I can export it for 4 times the price, or I'm going to supply it domestically. What am I going to do? I'm going to export it, and that's just going to drive the domestic price of gas up. So for those of you like me, I'm transitioning out of gas. I've got one of those old ducted gas systems. I've now disconnected, and I've gone electric, and I'm going renewable energy. So the gas agenda does not make economic sense, but it most importantly doesn't make environmental sense. Had a question up the front, and then yeah. Sorry, yeah, back to you. Yeah.
I have some solar PV.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it on? Okay. I have some PV panels when they first came out, and how do you keep them clean and efficient?
Peter, do you want to answer that one? Do you want to pass the mic 2 rows back? Peter's a solar expert from Beyond Zero Emissions.
If you contact the supplier of the solar panels, they'll generally have a maintenance program that they can offer you. Otherwise, you can get on the roof yourself if you're confident. It depends. I've got a flat roof, so it's easy for me. So it's a matter of just discussing it with the solar panel company. They'll be up there checking the connections, and they'll also clean the panels. They say that it's worth doing that.
Yeah. How are we going for time, Simon? 2 more questions? 2 minutes. We got one off the back, and then you've already had one, so you can be the last one.
Thanks. Good morning. My name's Dane. Thanks for the presentation. And just looking for your thoughts on storage of solar power overnight. Any ideas on the progression of storage technologies, please?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think we're about to enter that revolution of battery storage. I mean, batteries have been around for a long time. If you're off grid, obviously you have to go with batteries in terms of storing your renewable electricity. If you're on grid, you have the choice, obviously, about just feeding your electricity back into the grid, and you can still be a net energy producer by doing that. The scenario is changing somewhat with various peaks at the moment, peak demand for electricity changing. There's been some recent analysis that shows that it's almost, if you're on grid, it's a 50-50 bet whether you should actually go for battery storage or whether you should feed directly into the grid and use the grid essentially as your storage mechanism. the battery technologies are changing all the time. The electric vehicles market is actually driving that very, very heavily. Again, we're promoting electric vehicles, and we're doing research into that as well as part of our analysis on zero emissions. And the electric vehicle market is really driving those changes in energy storage. As I said, probably 50-50 bet whether you want to put in batteries, even if you're on grid, or whether you just use your inverters and feed the electricity to the grid and use the grid for storage itself. Last question. So we've had rain and now we've got wind. Maybe we'll get sun and snow.
Yeah. Now, I still am sort of thinking about the renters that would love to do stuff, but
Who, sorry?
People who rent.
Oh yes.
Because what would be the most effective thing for renters to actually do to become more efficient?
Yeah, I mean renters pay energy bills, and the tenant, the owner does not. We think there's opportunities for negotiation. So if you're a long-term renter, you should be able to go to the owner and say, look, and if the owner is a reasonable person, they may agree to going 50-50 or reducing, putting in place energy efficient measures such as double glazing and lighting and other things. We also believe that will make the house more attractive to renters. So if you're a smart owner, you would be actually retrofitting the homes that you're leasing to tenants, but also making that house much more attractive to long-term tenants by saying, when I'm renting my house or advertising it, your energy bills will be much, much lower. But look, there has been that age-old problem of split incentives, and it's an ongoing headache. But we believe there's room for creativity, and if you're a good tenant, you should be able to negotiate. I've rented in the past. I still rent now. If you're a good tenant, you should be able to negotiate with your landholder about not just painting the house, keeping it clean, mowing the lawns, but also putting in place some of these energy efficient measures. I've been told my time's up. Thanks, Simon, and thanks all of you for coming along today.